What's going on, everybody? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 CBD. Now, you know that raw CBD is good for inflammation and anxiety. And 101 CBD are the makers of premium raw CBD oil products. Their chill tincture blend is perfect to help us relax and recharge from those stressful moments of our day. And if you're like me, as time goes on, I'm starting to have these mystery aches and pains suddenly. Luckily, the Alleviate tincture is there to help with that inflammation and sore muscles that just suddenly and mysteriously show up. Another thing that I found that's really good for sore muscles is their Raw Relief Topical, which now comes in a roll-on, which makes it really easy to apply directly to those sore joints and sore muscles. And they also have some great raw CBD blends for our pets, like the bacon and salmon flavor. And just a reminder that because the raw CBD oil is sourced from commercial hemp, it can be shipped without a problem coast to coast, nationwide, and around the world. So go over to 101cbd.org, take a look at their products, order yourself some raw CBD today. And in case you didn't know, they have a great deal for all of the In My Grow Show listeners. You can get 25% off of your order when you use coupon code IMGS25 at checkout. All right, now let's start the show. Brothers and sisters, how's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. I'm your host, Alex, and thank you once again for taking the time to listen to me. I truly do appreciate it. Now, today there will be no strain of the week, mostly because, you know what, I didn't get a chance to make it to the pot shop. I also didn't get a chance to call my delivery guy either, which was kind of by design, not having a strain of the week, because it is January. You know, the weather's really nice right now in California. We've got clear skies and the temperatures are like the high 50s, low 60s. So when the weather's like that, I start to think about, you know, what seeds I'm going to plant this season. What beans am I going to pop? And I have some options. I've got seeds. I don't think I need to buy any seeds. I got plenty of seeds that, you know, of stuff that I've grown myself, of stuff that other people have given me. And I think I'm also going to sprout quite a few of the bag seeds that I have, the mystery seeds. They're all in one jar. I didn't mark any of them or separate them, so we're going to see what pops up. And that's always a fun thing, you know, the nice little mystery thing. You know, one thing I do want to try this coming season, though, is I'm going to try to grow some autoflowers. If anybody out there has any autoflower seeds, send them my way, man. Be cool about it. It'd be cool to try. I've got the perfect spots for them where I can keep an eye on them and then kind of ignore them at the same time, you know, kind of just let them go on autopilot. So, as I was saying, because, you know, the weather's nice and I'm thinking about what seeds I'm going to pop, I decided I would go over a kind of a checklist that I use when I'm putting a grow cabinet back in service or when I'm putting a grow room back together. It's a checklist that I use to remind me what biological predators I need to start with and how I need to start that whole mindset of using biological predators indoors. But I'll talk about that a little later. First, let's get to my social media feed. Let's see, what do we got coming up? Okay, just another reminder, really local. Again, a lot of my social media feeds are pretty local. If you're in California, the 805 kind of, you know, Southern California area. So don't forget that Dr. Jake Felice will be at Sespe Creek Collective Monday, January 13th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. He'll be giving a presentation about the endocannabinoid system. He'll be able to answer questions. There is a Q&A at the end, I believe, is what it said. And Sespe Creek Collective is in beautiful Ojai, and you can find them at 408 Bryant Circle, Suite C. Another thing I want to make sure you guys know about is at Arroyo Verde Farms, out in beautiful Carpinteria, California. They're having their community day tours this Saturday, January 18th. If you've ever been curious about what a commercial cannabis operation looks like, a commercial cannabis cultivation operation looks like, this is your chance to find out. There are still tickets available for the 10 o'clock tour. I just went on their Instagram account to see if there were tickets available, and there were as of today's Sunday. So the best way to find tickets is to go to Instagram and find their profile. That is at Arroyo Verde Farms. And go to their bio. You'll see a Get Tickets little tab at the far right. That sounds like it's going to be a really cool time, a really educational time. That's the 10 o'clock tour, I think, is the time that I'm going to be there. So hopefully I'll see you there. And I'll let you know how that goes next week. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is this cannabis networking event that I went to last week, a couple of days ago. What was that? Wednesday? Thursday? I can't remember. It was held at the Carr winery in Santa Barbara. It was a really good time. I saw a lot of great friends from the industry that I don't usually get to talk to and see very often. We're all really busy. I got to enjoy a free red ale, which was also really cool. I don't know if that was included in the ticket price. I didn't pay attention to the details, but they just seemed to serve me my beer and walk away, so that was perfect. And I got to give it up to the sponsors of this event. It was a really awesome thing they put together. I really enjoyed listening to the speakers that they had. One of the ladies that was speaking was Melissa Kuipers Blake, who is an attorney at law, and she was talking about some of the realities of what cannabis legalization federally looks like, what the signs are, what the signals are in Washington as far as how close they are to legalizing it. She had a lot of really interesting things to say. I'm reaching out to her. Hopefully I'll get her on the show real soon, because I want to talk to her a little more in depth about the topics that she was bringing up, especially around the States Act, which stands for strengthening the 10th Amendment through entrusting states. That is the States Act. That's what the acronym stands for. And Wikipedia says that the act would amend the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 to exempt from federal enforcement individuals or corporations in states who are compliant. So I'm looking forward to getting her on the show. The other woman that was speaking that I want to get on the show is Felicia Carbajal, who is the executive director of the Social Impact Center. And she was talking basically about social equity in the cannabis industry and how we all should, strive for it and different strategies to achieve it. So, and I want to thank some of the sponsors who put it together. Sespe Verde, Delta Leaf Lab, Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck. They're a law firm. They helped throw this night together. So all of them, and I know there's a couple more I'm missing. I apologize. I don't have the list in front of me. All right, now let's do the report from the Cannabis Front Line. And I want to start off with the fact that some Italian researchers announced this past week that they've discovered 2 new phytocannabinoids, or cannabinoids that are made by the cannabis plant or any plant. One of them is THCP, which is tetrahydrocannabidiol, and the other one is CBDP, which is cannabidiol. Okay. And from the sounds of it, they're different because the molecule chain is longer. And because they're longer, they bind more easily to the CB1 and CB2 receptors. And from how I understand everything I've read about it, and just a reminder, I am not a molecular scientist. I'm not any kind of scientist. But it sounds like these new cannabinoids, the THCP and the CBDP, bind more easily to the receptors, to the CB1 and CB2 receptors, which may explain why some strains feel more potent than others. Like if you have more THCP, that strain's going to have, be more psychoactive. The same goes for the CBDP, from what I can understand also, that it's easier for the body to absorb and use and be more helpful in all of the things that CBD is good for. So I thought that was a cool thing to read about. It's just one more reminder that this whole idea of prohibition, how it holds back a lot of research. Because think of how many more benefits we're going to discover once we're able to freely research this on human patients. Instead of, we do have a lot of information, a lot of tests that have been done on animals. And while some of the symptoms and the way animals react to certain medications is really similar to how humans react to things, they're not the same thing. So, this is awesome. We just keep finding more cannabinoids and, the better ways to use this plant. That's awesome. And there is a link in the show notes of one of the articles I read about this that comes from Leafly. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show, the one that's held in Vegas every year, about all the awesome new fandangled, electrical gadgets that are coming out this year. And I want to talk about it because every year they give out what's called an Innovation Award honoree to a product that they think is the most innovative of what's coming out in this year. And for 2020, they gave it to a company called Keep Labs. And the reason for this is because Keep makes a smart storage box. And I'm going to read to you what it says here in the literature for that. It says, Keep is a first smart storage device designed to keep cannabis secure and discreet at home. Biometric authentication with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, allowing responsible cannabis users to lock and unlock their device through the Keep app with a look or a touch. The app sends users push alerts to their phone in the event of anyone attempting to access or move the device, which I think is a really good idea if you have kids around. They're always really curious. It goes on to say that it includes a rolling tray, clear storage internal containers, a designated area for accessories, and a built-in scale to keep track of inventory from an app. Wow. The hermetic seal keeps odors in while temperatures and humidity monitors keep inventory fresh. It's also a smart speaker and a clock. And I gotta say, it's a pretty slick looking device, man. It's a storage box for your weed and your edibles. That's also a clock. It's really unassuming, It looks like a clock you would put on top of your dresser. And it's a speaker also, like a smart speaker. You could hook up a Wi-Fi to your phone and play music. And it keeps everything secure, locked. So as I was saying, if you have kids or maybe you don't trust your roommate or your wife, they're always getting into your shit. But the point to all this is that, so the CES awarded this company this honoree award, but they didn't let them have any floor display area since their product was related to cannabis and said, cannabis everywhere on the literature. So it seems like kind of a head-scratching move. I mean, why would you give somebody that honor but yet not allow them to display what you're honoring them for? So on one hand, it was pretty cool that they got the honor, but on the other hand, it's pretty fucked up. But when you get a moment, Google that Keep Labs storage box. It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. And if anyone from Keep Labs is listening, I would love to, have one of the boxes so I could try out and review. That'd be awesome. And that, everybody, is the report from the Cannabis Front Line today. Now, as I said earlier, since I was thinking about what seeds I'm going to pop, that means I had to start thinking about, okay, I've got to put back together a couple of grow cabinets. So when I do that, I have a little go-to checklist that I have. Well, I have several go-to checklists when I do this, when I put a grow room back together or a grow cabinet back into service. One of the checklists that I use helps me get back into this mindset of using biological predators in my garden. So I have to be honest. Growing indoors is not my favorite way to grow. I like growing outside. I like growing in the sun for a lot of reasons. One of them is because indoors I'm basically trying to mimic everything that nature's doing outside. And it's not an easy thing to keep all of the environment running at optimal levels for whatever strain of plant I'm running. And if I'm running different strains in the same area, optimal conditions for one strain isn't always optimal conditions for another strain. And when those conditions are off, they can cause plants to stress out. So for me, that's why I like growing outside. But when I can't, I look at a couple of different checklists. And one of them that I really pay attention to is the one that I'm going to read from right now. And it talks mostly about the best ways to use biological predators in your indoor grow space. So the first thing I'm going to do to get my cabinets ready for the growing season is that I'm going to clean it thoroughly from top to bottom. The first thing I'm going to do is wash everything down with some soapy water and a rag. Put my hands on it, make sure every corner, make sure every hole, wherever my filter is exhaust through that hole, make sure everything gets wiped down and cleaned. Because I have to remember, aside from mold hanging out there and other dusts and other things, that some pests will also like to hang out in those crevices. So you got to make sure to get all those corners. If you're cleaning a grow room, you got to make sure any penetration, like where plumbing is coming in through, gets cleaned around it. The corners of the baseboards get cleaned. Again, where your exhaust fan is going in and out of your grow area, everything should be wiped down, cleaned. Any tools that I used before on last season's grow that were left in there, or anything that I'm going to reuse, any of the floor mats that I'm going to use, any of the floor covering mats that I'm going to use, they get washed on both sides, and then underneath those mats gets washed also. And after it's all cleaned out to my satisfaction, I'm going to do one more thing before I put any plants in there. And that is I'm going to put little bush bean plants in solo cups in that space. Because if I did miss any areas where spider mites might be hanging out, these bean plants are going to help attract and draw out those spider mites. And it also helps me monitor those spider mites because spider mite damage on bean plants shows up within hours of it happening instead of days when it comes to like cannabis plants. The same thing goes, I believe, with white flies. So that way I know pretty quick whether I've missed any spots. And if I do, then you know what? I'm going to go chemical. I'll get one of those pyrethrin foggers somebody turned me on to a couple of years ago and just fog the room. That should get everything. And then start nice and clear from there. And once I think my grow area is nice and clean and ready to put plants in, whether it's one or 2 gallon pots or solo cups, as soon as I start watering those pots, those plants, those seedlings, I make it a point to water in some beneficial soil mites. All right, now bear with me here on the pronunciations, okay? I either try to get the Stratolalips schimatus, which is abbreviated as SS, that is a big S and a little s. And it's not going to be the last time I talk about this, so I'll just refer to it as SS from here on out. The other one I try to find is the Gaeolalips gillespie. And these beneficial soil mites are going to help control the fungus gnat larvae in the root zone, which is really going to help cut down on some plant stresses. And both of those mites are also going to feed on the pupated thrip larvae, which helps, manage thrip populations by breaking up the breeding cycle or the reproductive cycle. Now, the SS soil mites are also going to help control root aphids, weevils, and pathogenic nematodes. Now, for air rooting systems like, aeroponics or maybe even an ebb and flow table, I don't have a lot of experience with those. The best thing that I can suggest that's been told to me to use in those situations are rove beetles. For a couple of reasons. One is they're really good flyers and they tolerate like virtual aquatic situations, the virtual, almost always wet situations really good. And they're always super hungry. So that's why I've been told rove beetles works really well in like hydroponics and in aeroponics. Now, once my plant seedlings start to push out like true leaves, the ones that come after the cotyledon leaves, the little round ones that first appear, once they start pushing out the true cannabis leaves, the ones that are serrated, I'm going to use the Neosilicis felicis, which is another general predatory mite that feeds on a lot of different other pest mites, like broad mites. But one thing I need to tell you about when you're using predatory mites to control pest outbreaks is that you want to start using them really early, and you want to use them throughout the vegetative state because you want to make sure that the pests that they eat and knock down are as little as possible before, or as few as possible before you go into flower. Because as soon as you flip the switch and those plants start to go into flower and put on the sticky trichomes, those mites are no longer going to want to be around the flowers. They don't like the stickiness. The mites are out of there. And if you don't have your pest population controlled, once those predatory mites leave, those other pest mites could just take over, and then you have to use some other completely different type of predatory biological insect to knock down the pest that you should have taken care of before. So if you're going to use predatory mites in your garden, start it early and make sure they're nice and healthy population all through veg. Now, since we're on the subject of mites, let's talk a little bit about spider mites. They love hot, dry climates, hot, dry temperatures. They don't like high humidity. They like low humidity. So if you do see quite a bit of spider mites on your bean plants that are in your garden, that are in your grow area, or on your cannabis plants, and you're not fighting any kind of botrytis, it's okay to mist your plants, a couple of times a day, just to push up that humidity level and make it uncomfortable for the spider mites. As I said before, the Neosilius felicis, God, I don't know if I'm getting that right, but they're hard, man. They're these Latin names. Why do they just call them something else? Anyways, the Neosilius are really good, the Felices, at preventing spider mites from establishing a colony. Okay, they're good at preventing it, all right? Now, if you have some hotspot breakouts of infestations of spider mites, what you could use together with the Felices is the Phytocilius persimilis. And as I was saying, the persimilis can work in tandem with the Felices because the Felice doesn't like the mite webbing, while the Persimilis just thrives in it. So keep that in mind if you have like a spider mite hotspot in your indoor garden. Now next I want to talk a little bit about aphids. Aphids in general don't cause a lot of problems. One of the big things about aphids is that they do secrete honeydew, which is this sweet little excrement that they give off. And there are two problems with that. One is that they can cause these little black mold spots on your plants. And two, they could attract ants. Ants love to feed on that honeydew. Ants will go as far as farming aphids, like protecting them. So, this is an important detail to remember, because before you knock down any pests in your indoor garden or even outdoor, you need to take care of any kind of ants that may be around, any kind of ant colony. Because the ant colonies will protect those aphids and those other insects. If they're farming them, if they're taking their honeydew, they will protect them against predators. And ants, they're vicious, man. I have to be really careful when I put out, like, let's say my green lacewing eggs. Because if I put them out too soon, and they've got, like, let's say 2 or 3 days to hatch, that may be too soon, and the ants could discover them and just eat all the eggs off of those cards. And then I've not only wasted a whole bunch of lacewings, but I haven't even addressed the issue of the problem that those lacewings were supposed to take care of. So, once again, ants are not your friend, especially when they're farming these aphids for that honeydew. It sounds kind of gross, but that's what they do. So there you go. Now I want to talk a little bit about root aphids. For me, they're a little bit hard for me to diagnose and to see. But if I even suspect that I have root aphids in my garden, I will go ahead and add those SS mites that I spoke of earlier, because they're going to help hunt down those aphid larvae. Now a little bit about thrips. Thrips can cause really similar damage to spider mites, except that thrips, they scrape the leaf surface, while the spider mites pierce the leaf to suck out the chlorophyll. Now just so you know, thrips are attracted to yellow and blue sticky traps. And we can increase the trapping rate by a factor of 10 by attaching a cotton ball to the sticky trap and adding a few drops of vanilla or almond extract to the cotton ball. Again, bean plants are also a great way to attract the thrips off of plants, whether it's your tomatoes or your cannabis. And it's also a really great way to monitor them, to see how bad an infestation you have. Do you have a lot? Do you have a little bit? So again, I can't say it enough about planting some bean plants in some solo cups and keeping them in your garden. That's what I do. And then when I think they're infested enough or filled up enough or they've been there long enough, I carefully take them out of the garden. I don't want to shake them off. I want to make sure that when I pull them out, they're not going to brush up against any other leaves. I mean, it happens. It happens, but don't bring it through the center of your garden towards brushing up against anything, because you're just brushing off the mites or thrips that are attached to it. And then just take it out of the garden, discard it. I'm not going to suggest, if you're going to use it in your compost bin, sometimes I'll do that. I'll make sure that I'm also composting some really hot manure, whether it's actual raw cow manure or goat manure, because that'll just burn any larvae and eggs off. But if it's just like food scraps and composting, I don't know if that kind of composting is really going to get rid of the eggs. So just be careful. I would just, if you don't have either one of those, like a way to compost it with heat, find a way to destroy it. I don't know, burn it, bury it, blow it up. I'm not real sure, Now, a good biological predator for the thrips is the Neosulius cucamaris. If you know that you have thrips, the cucamaris is the way to go. Sounds like a dinosaur almost, doesn't it? A cucamaris. And finally, the quick note that I want to talk about is about white flies, which are pretty common in indoor grow spaces. And just so you know, white flies are a very close relative to the aphids, so they are suckers. And since it is, part of the aphid family, they do secrete this, honeydew that also can attract this sooty mold, that can make this sooty mold, and also attract ants. One of the things to use against the white flies is a parasitic wasp, this little tiny little black wasp called the Encarsia formosa. Almost sounds like Hermosa, but yeah, the Encarsia formosa. And once again, bean plants, man, are a really good tool to help monitor and attract those white flies away from your plants. Well, everybody, like I said, that is a quick checklist, or that is one of the quick checklists that I use when I'm putting a grow room back together or putting a grow cabinet back together. All of those biological predators I pick up at Rincon Vitova Insectary. You can find them at rinconvitova.com. They have every biological predator answer for whatever biological pest you may have. Go over there, check them out. Okay, they also have a lot of really great information out there. They have a resource guide to where you can look up your problem by pest or by predator. So, go over there, check it out, man. And that, my friends, is the end of my notes. Don't forget, if you have a question or a comment about this episode, send me an email, that is inmygrow@gmail.com, or find me across all social media platforms, Instagram, Cannabis, Strainly, that is at InMyGrowShow. And while we're on the issue, do me a favor, go over and check out Cannabis.com and Strainly, because those are two social media platforms that are geared towards cannabis. If you're a cannabis enthusiast, entrepreneur, or cannabis company and are afraid of having your profile shut down on Instagram and Facebook, don't live in fear, man. Go somewhere else. Yes, it may take you a little while to have all of your followers follow you over there, but you can rest easy without having that one problem just lingering over your head, like, oh shit, if I post this up, are they going to shut me down? Because it's a possibility. It's very possible, and they don't have to give you a reason. They can just do it. We have no recourse. We may be able to petition them, but they're not guided by logic, so they could just tell you to go screw yourself. So please go over and support these two social media platforms for cannabis, Cannabis and Strainly. All right, brothers and sisters, well, I want to say thank you to all the artists who let me use their music to put this show together. And I want to remind you that if this show has educated you, entertained you, or even given you a little escape from your day, do me a favor, go over to patreon.com/inmygrow and leave a financial donation. If you don't want to leave a financial donation over there, go over to inmygrow.com, click on the Support the Show tab, and buy a t-shirt. And another easy way to help support the show financially is, before you go shopping at Amazon, click on the Amazon link at the top of the show notes, because that lets them know that we sent you, and the show gets a commission, but it doesn't cost you anything. Now, as always, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. I get it, but here's how you can help. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Subscribe to the website, inmygrow.com. And then go over to YouTube, look up In My Grow Show with Alex, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then after you do all that subscribing, tell 3 other people about the show. Really simple, really easy. Well, buddy, like I said, that's the end of my notes, so I'm going to get on out of here. Now, you know that I love you very much. And remember to always grow, learn, and teach